You gotta learn Korean. You gotta learn Korean. You gotta learn Korean. You gotta learn Korean. All right, next, I want to explain about Korean language. By the way, these are slides that are not in your book because this is not part of Father's canonized content, but these are comments that I think are necessary for English speakers or for non-Korean speakers. You got to learn Korean. Bottom line. Korean is the language of Adam. Period. Right? And so if we want to have a deep relationship with Adam, then we need to be able to speak the same language as he does. You know, parents and children should speak the same language. That's just a fact of life, I think. And I know there are people who have deep relationships with Father without speaking Korean. And they say, hey, my relationship with Father is much deeper than Tim Elder's, so why should I have to learn Korean? Okay, I will accept that you have a deeper relationship. But if you were to learn Korean, then your relationship would be much, 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 much deeper than it is now. You know, we have these books, right? And the letters in these books have not miraculously changed into English. The letters in these books are still Korean, and they will always be Korean. But the words in these books are words of life. So if you are interested in life, then I think you will want to become familiar with the words in these books. You know, there are some people who say that, well, now the providence has moved to the West, and so there's no longer a need to learn Korean. The providence can move around the world according to God's need. God may move the providence to Africa or to Australia or to Antarctica or to the North Pole, anywhere he needs, in order to bring about God's kingdom as quickly as possible. But Adam is Adam. And the language of Adam is not going to change. And these words will never miraculously turn into English or to French or to German. They will always remain Korean. I see Father as a translator. Father has taken God's word and translated it into a human language. And no human language is fully capable of expressing the entirety of God's word, because all human languages come from a fallen background. Language is basically the expressing the collective experience of a certain group of people through history. And Korean is no different. Sure, God prepared Korean to be the least bad of all the fallen human languages, the least bad, in order to express his truth in the 20th century. And that is true. And there's a lot of God's word and the truth of God that will never be expressed in human language, and that's why Father emphasized the need for learning through experience. If you look at the word chehyul, which we translate into English as learning through experience, you have to experience it in order to know it. For example, when God uses the word love, this is very different from our understanding of love. We don't know what God means by love until we have experienced it. And so we can only learn it that way. And God is a God of love. So he expressed his truth in a language that everyone can learn. If you say you cannot learn Korean, then you are saying God is not a God of love. You got to learn Korean. You got to learn Korean. You got to learn Korean. You got to learn Korean.